morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are at. I hope you're having a fantastic day. It's SoulSaint here, and we're continuing the Tour de SoulSaint's Dungeon Edition. I know, I'm struggling to say this for some reason, I don't know why. But if you haven't seen all my other previous videos, basically we are doing a tour of all my currently actively used teams inside the dungeon map terrain of Teleria. And basically, this was requested from the community during our subathon that we had recently. And the community, one of the members posted in the ideas channel in my Discord, which you can join and be a part of. Look in the description below. There'll be a link there for you to use. But basically, we were requested to show and demonstrate and showcase some of the teams that we're currently actively using and why. So with that being said, today's video is going to be based off of Dragon's Lair, one of the best places to farm if you're looking for speed, which we're actively in an event for right now. So I'm kind of happy we can do this. If you are already familiar with some of the mechanics that I've showcased in other teams, like concepts like the Seer Waveclear team, it's no different here. I don't know if you've been noticed, there's a bit of a trend, and I'll explain hopefully by the end of this entire tour, you'll see why. But we are still using the Seer Waveclear team. So Wave 1, Wave 2 is still conquered and accomplished by Seer herself. And then we have our enabler / disabler in Lydia, along with Yumiko to reset the team. Now, Yumiko, I could replace. I do have a Kaimar, but I actually did put Yumiko specifically for this team because of what she brings to the table. But also our boss killer / complementary aspect to the Waveclear team is Mithrala. She's actually a part of the duo that's going to be accomplishing the kill on the dragon. But the main fighter himself that's going to go toe-to-toe with him, even by himself if he has to, is going to be Stultus. Now here's why. I'm going to break it down from forward going backwards here. Stultus, believe it or not, is a defensive nuker. That means he's typically going to have really good defensive stats all around the rip. His base stats are going to be 14 and 54, as you can obviously see. He actually has a pretty decent amount of HP too. Nothing crazy, but nothing bad either, right? But the big thing that we care about him in terms of being able to address Dragon hard is the fact that the boss does poisons, right? Now, whenever an enemy attempts to place a weaken debuff on Stultus, his Untarnished passive kicks in. It actually doesn't even go on him. It completely redirects this back to the attacker. So the boss in particular, I believe he does do decrease attack, weaken, and a set of poisons. So this actually is a great way for you to take the mechanics that the boss throws at you and spit it right back at him. And if you look at this, if you take a look at the boss guide here, he places 4 5% poisons, a weaken, and then of course gives himself increased attack. I think he does decrease attack with his base form, so we don't really care about that because that has no bearing on our survivability, which is HP and defense. And of course, as in general, because he scales off of defense, decreased attack does nothing towards Stultus, right? Now, we're not actually trying to do on-hit damage this round with the way our Stultus is built. We're actually just banking solely on poisons. Now, 4 poisons on a debuff bar is only 4 out of 10. But we do have Lydia in play, who also on her A1 gives you the ability to place some extra poison. So it does say it attacks 2 times at random, but there's only one boss, only one target, which means that you always net those 2 poisons. In addition to that, she does do increased defense, increase defense, increase attack, which helps out with the Waveclear side of things. The more buffs Seer has, the more she pops. And then, of course, in actual support of the boss fight, where Stultus kind of shines, she gives a little extra complementary to the on-hit damages that we take from, you know, the kit for the boss, with strengthen and shield. So that covers us not taking as much damage to our actual HP, and then of course when we do take actual HP damage or even the shield damage, the strengthen kind of mitigates that a little bit more too as well, which is really ideal. So that's kind of where they're kind of focused on. If you want to see how Seer and Lydia and the rest of them are designed, you can go take a look at some of the previous tour videos, and you can kind of refer to those builds as a part of it. But I'll show you the Stultus and the Mithrala portion of this one. I will note that keep in mind that we have a blessing on Mithrala, which is kind of nice. It's protected. It'll help out a little bit with also clearing to his mind. So let's do a quick run here. We're going to go ahead and let it run this on super raids because we're also confident that this team is going to do very good. But basically, Seer Wave Clear is going to kick in for Wave 1 and Wave 2. You notice how we're getting buffs from both Lydia and Mithrala, which is kind of nice. Our winged queens are doing their job. And of course, Seer also cranking through. We do have Yumiko resetting here during this portion of the wave, which is really nice. Now, we're going to stop it right here. This is where Yumiko also shines, and it's going to be in her A2. If you pay attention to the way her kit works, her A2 has a passive effect where as long as this A2 is applied, which is the Hex, is applied to the boss, it has a chance to reflect and transfer debuffs that are placed on a random to a random enemy, right? So it's going to go to the one that has Hex, which in this case is going to be the boss. So whenever he throws poisons at us, just like Stultus, she also reapplies it back to him. So we're going to go back into play here and let it roll. And of course, I have Lydia open up with the A3 there because we're banking on poisons as a whole. And I don't know if you noticed it. That's a combination of at least 4 of those came from Stultus. The other 3 possibly came from Yumiko here in that regard. So if you notice, we kind of really filled up the debuff bar really, really quickly off of the first hit. Now, I do have points of sensitivity here also in play from Lydia, which is complementary to make sure that the poisons do not only their job, but then some, you know? I think typically on average, it caps around like 50k, I believe, per poison. But with poison sensitivity, at least I know this does it in Demon Lord, where it scales up to like 65,000 instead of like 50,000. So you net like 15k per each poison from the poison sensitivity. Nice little bonus. Not mandatory, but of course it helps. And then, of course, at this point, we're okay with Seer falling off. We're okay with Lydia falling off. And honestly, we're also okay with Yumiko falling off, too, as well. The main thing, though, is that we have to be careful with this shield that comes up from the boss whenever he goes into his third ability, which is the Demonic Gaze. Now, because we already have the poison set up and they've been redirected and they still have good longevity on them, 2-turn duration, we're pretty much in the safe house for those poisons that do a percentage of the boss's health to cover that and then some. So we should be okay here. You're going to notice that she's going to apply some strengthening and everything. We also applied our shield here because we're going to still take some on-hit damage, right? But we want to keep the battle going. Notice how he didn't do a stun on the entire team. He actually just did a swipe, which means that we bursted through when he got his turn. And then, of course, the key thing here is that as the rest of the team is going to start falling down and dissipating, Lydia and Yumiko and Seer are going to fall off, but Mithrala with Stultus is going to kind of cover the last of the poisons. Now, we're only redirecting 4 from every single time he tries to apply it with his A2. Mithrala makes up the difference here at this point and adds a couple extra ones to keep that debuff bar pretty stimulated and pretty filled for the most part, and that's what leads to us getting a successful clear. So the big things to kind of keep in mind is the poisons we add from Mithrala, the shields we add from Mithrala for survivability purposes, and then of course Stultus being tanky and applying his passive in complementary with Yumiko, applying their passives from their abilities to really kind of redirect those poisons and constantly keep the boss hurting under poisons nonstop. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys a little bit of the builds here. We're only going to show Mithrala and Stultus for this portion of the video, so if you guys want to see Seer and the rest of the team, go take a look at our previous tour videos, like I said before. But believe it or not, this is an outdated build I have on Mithrala. I have not touched Mithrala in a very, very long time. The main thing that we wanted to aim for is, 1, she has to be a decent speed so she's not constantly getting lapped, and even then, she still kind of does. I believe the boss for the dragon side is 250 speed at stage 10, which I'm going to double check here for you guys real quickly. We're going to rely to our stages tool. The boss is 250 speed, so she's actually a little bit slower. However, we have bonuses. We have Dragon Slayer bonuses, which give us 258, and that kind of helps us make up for it a little bit to a point where we're actually still on par with the boss overall. The main thing also at this point is that he has a resistance of 320, which means 345. That little magic number I keep talking about is pretty much the same thing you need to be able to apply those. Now, with Mithrala and the way her passive works, she gets some extra resistance from it, which helps her kind of avoid some of the poisons, but we have her pretty high up there, so we bank on her accuracy quite a bit because it scales well into her kit. To land, debuffs, and of course be able to resist. Then after that, at this point, it's just all tankiness. As much defense and as much HP as I can get, and that's pretty much the way her build is designed. Any sets that can kind of complement you in that direction, think Perception for the accuracy and the speed, maybe accuracy set themselves, or anything in those lines, and then after that, you're just trying to make sure you make a little bit of sustain. She does have an immortal set, so she is getting 3% per turn, and of course she nets a little bit of HP on the top inside. Not mandatory, complementary. In terms of blessings, this is something we didn't get to see it in that last run there, but every now and then when the debuff bar isn't overly stimulated, all 10 debuff slots are filled, sometimes she has a chance to apply Brimstone, which is literally the best debuff damaging debuff you can have in the game. It does like crazy amounts of output. To a point where I think it does like percentages of the boss's health. I think it scales up to enemy max HP. It's almost like an enemy max HP in a sense there, and it can be protected. And of course, she has accuracy to land it anyway, so very, very good complementary Brimstone that she has. I actually had this on her since the beginning of when blessings became a thing, and I used it, and it was sometimes a little bit of a crutch for me for my spider team, which is no longer a problem, but she's not used anymore. Her masteries and everything else that she has is actually kind of, I would say, also kind of outdated too, to be honest with you. But we do rely on War Master, and we kind of go down the traditional route like Crit Raid and all these other things. But realistically speaking, the big ones that we care about are like the accuracy, angled support tree. Of course, Lore Steel to complement any set bonuses that we got going on. Evil Eye, her A1 does hit 2 targets randomly, so like if you are trying to get like a little bit of extra like turn meter reduction, Evil Eye does help with her default skill. And of course, having the chance to extend things like Poison, for example, which is kind of key to her kit, as well as Hex. You can get that from Master Hexer there, so not too bad, not too bad. Nothing over the top there in terms of that. Her stats are pretty nice though, considering that she just has a 5-star blessing waiting for her. But the creme de la creme, the basically the strawberry on top of the cake here is going to be Stultus. Unfortunately, I don't have a mastery for him, so I don't actually know exactly what I'd put on him. I'd probably consider something around the lines of maybe emergency heal, and I'd try to find a way to incorporate more shields for him. 100% uptime, maybe with like a blood shield or something like that. Very similar to my Artec. If you haven't seen the Ice Golem video, go check that out. But the name of the game is Sustain. So we do have him in Regen and Immortal. I think at this point now, considering how far progressed I am in an in-game account, so it's very easy to hit certain stats. And even then, if you take a look here, it's not over the top finished. I'm actually still using 5-star gear, funny enough, which you'll probably find a replacement for. Don't care. The job gets done. It's really kind of the long and short of it. But Immortal, Regen, and then if we're applying the bonuses from Dragon Lair, we have 204 speed with 103,000 HP. And then 4K plus defense. So I think typically the closer you can get to like 4K defense, the better. I think you can see you'll start seeing some comparable success at like 3.4, 3.2 at a minimum. And then of course HP wise, the higher you get above like 65,000 to 70, 80,000, the more relaxed it gets, the more safer it gets. And then of course, believe it or not, he does not require any accuracy to redirect those debuffs because it's a passive trigger. It's kind of like transferring or the same aspect of like debuff spreading. It falls in that same category where you don't need accuracy to spread, I believe. And that makes it a lot easier. Now, 204 may seem kind of slow compared to like 250, which is the boss, which is an important factor that we will talk about here. I do have blessings, or mastery, excuse me, that kind of co-align with giving him as much survivability and make up for that deficit in mind. So, HP being the name of the game, we do go down Steadfast, and of course, our tier 6 is going to be Elixir of Life. We do have Lore Steel to kind of help out with like the Immortal side. You get that little extra HP there. And then, of course, making more value out of your shields and heals, basically, is what we were looking for. So, Rejuvenation, but more importantly, Spirit Haste. Spirit Haste here is where we kind of ramp up a little bit more. If you add that 24 to the already existing 200 plus speeds, we're starting to get a little bit closer towards where the boss's speeds are at. And the main thing is just to exist, right? So we just need a couple turns here and there to give us those regen and immortal procs so that when the boss is hitting us, we ain't going down to 0. And that's basically it. But everything else, in terms of survivability, the boss only does AoE hits, so Blastproof is ideal, of course, extra defense, and then, you know, giving ourselves a chance to, you know, basically, like, survive and whatnot is kind of the name of the game there. There's a couple of masteries that are, like, not really, like, mandatory. For example, like, we're not taking any debuffs from majority of the bosses outside of maybe that decreased attack, which has no bearing on us. So, like, Resurgent isn't as mandatory, but, you know, we want to get down towards, like, Delayed Death or maybe Cycle of Revenge to give him a little bit of a turn meter boost if we do get hit, you know, hit pretty hard, so he can get his turn to kind of make up for that with the regen gear. But pretty much the long and short of it is just to survive at the end of the day, and I think that's kind of the key thing there. If I had a chance to make some changes here, I think regen is mandatory, Immortal is not. Immortal is complementary, but it's not mandatory. I would even dare say that you could probably change the build up to maybe incorporate sets like Defiance, since you're going against a boss that does nothing but AoEs. That could be pretty good. It also scales into defense pretty well, but the damage mitigation is pretty nice. In tandem with like those masteries like Blastproof, which will help you sustain through those battles, you know, the damage even more. Obviously, if we did get a blessing, like I said, I think Emergency Heal would probably be my go-to there, which, you know, you can play along with Mithrala's Shield, and then if you had the ability to, let's just take a look here for a second. Do I have any accessories in that realm? It looks like the answer is no. That's probably why we don't have anything equipped there. Let's see. Let me check equip just to make sure. Looks like I don't have any Blood Shield accessories for the Bannerlords currently, but if I did have that, maybe I'd try to find a replacement for one of my lore and, you know, 5-star pieces, and we kind of change it up. But the name of the game is just high HP, high defense, enough speed to kind of keep yourself going in the match with regen, and then you just let it go. That's the long and short of it. Anyways, with that being said, what do you guys think? Stultus' Trident Trio feels pretty good. I know that there's some routes that people go like Stone Skin and super slow for him so that he just kind of tanks the brunt of the damage by existing, and the shield, the barrier you get with Stone Skin kind of makes it possible. I did see people do that before. I went down the regen route because at the time of his build, I actually did not have adequate, I would say, Stone Skin. So I was like, you know what, let me just try to live through just constantly healing through the battle, and that's what regen did for me there. You could also, just to keep in mind too, you could also use things like Bolster. You could use you know, some kind of regenerative type sets. I did before when I first play tested this many moons ago, and this is way before like area bonuses and all these other things that came out that make it easier now. I did try triple immortal, but it wasn't enough to keep you going because you would only have 9% versus like regen's 15%. So I still give the seal approval to at least one set regen overall. But yeah, definitely a lot of different ways you can kind of build them up. Let me know, are you guys using something alternatively? I thought about some variable flexing. Maybe I build up another build, and this is the only reason why I don't do it is because I'm just being kind of lazy. But I thought about, I'm sitting on a Theodore that I'm kind of using only for like Doom Tower content and some onesies and twosies areas here and there, but like a Theodore maybe instead of like Mithrala, and I could maybe speed up the run because the poisons are coming in very effectively, and I could capitalize off of that by exploding them with his chemistry ability on his A3. So I don't know, there's a lot of different variables I thought about doing, but the long and short of it is just to sustain to the battle and let that passive cook, and the dragon does the rest. Anyways, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys use for your dragon team. I'm very curious. I hope you're enjoying the speed event that's currently active too. 3xp is pretty dope. If you got a good piece, let me see it. Anyways, with that being said, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and as always remember, stay ascended.
Quick to get the